I'm ready.
All right. I'm going to call our open session to order at 5:46 p.m. And our first item of business is public comment for closed session items only. We do not have anyone here in person for any public comment for closed session items only. And our superintendent is on Zoom. And Scott, if you don't mind, would you let me know if you have any email comments for public comment for closed session items?
I'm gonna check right now.
Thank you. Do you mind if we move ahead to roll call and you'll just let me know if we have any emails?
No problem.
Thank you.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Here.
Trustee Donnelly.
Present.
Trustee Edmondson.
Present.
Trustee Jackson Miller.
Present.
Trustee Dickinson.
Here.
Great.
And
All
there
right.
are no emails for closed session items.
All right, so no public comment. We are now going to convene to closed session at 5:47 p.m. All right, thank you so much. see. Uh-oh. Oh, it's the owl.
Yeah, no, it's,
Oh. There it is. We're good? All right, great. I'm going to call our open session to order at 6:41 PM. And it's always our pleasure to start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Principal Hadrius, would you like to introduce your student?
Would be honored to. Today, I am very honored to introduce you all to Aaliyah Marcus. Come on up, who is a sixth grade student at New Brighton Middle School. And she will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. And place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He's also going to read the district mission statement. Okay, straight from there. That's fine. That's great.
SoCal Union Elementary School District Mission Statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
All right.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
I know you have a certificate to read, but I just want to say a few words. So when I was asked to pick a student to represent New Brighton Middle School, the first person to come to mind was Aaliyah Marcus. Aaliyah, when I see her on campus, she's always got a bright smile on her face. She's so friendly. I hear your new favorite place to go is in Miss Carissa's office sometimes. Is that where you're heading sometimes? So she's just always so warm to staff, to her peers, and just has such a positive attitude. And so there was no other person for me to choose. And you'll get to read some other fantastic things about her. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Aaliyah,
Miss
can I read
Amanda.
your certificate?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to stand up because it's very official. All right, the SoCal Union Elementary School District Board of Trustees Certificate of Recognition for our student Pledge of Allegiance leader and mission statement reader, Aaliyah Marcus, sixth grade student, New Brighton Middle School. Aaliyah's enthusiasm for education makes her a role model for others. She applies herself in all subject areas and has a love for music and athletics. She's currently in the NBMS intermediate band class as a sixth grader and plays the saxophone and trombone. Not just one instrument, saxophone and trombone. She was also selected for the Central Coast Middle School Honor Band. In addition to her passion for music, Aaliyah enjoys wrestling on the NBMS wrestling team and participates in cross country and theater. She's a kickboxer and has a gray belt in jiu-jitsu. She has a love for writing and has maintained a 4.0 for all quarters at NBMS. These qualities, along with her positive attitude and perpetual smile, are the reasons why Aaliyah shines bright as a Viking. Awesome. All right, another round of applause. May I present you with your certificate? Yeah. Thank you. Would you like, we have these notepads, help yourself. If you think either of your brothers would want notepads at their ages, you can grab for them, but it's okay if you don't, because they're your older brothers, right? Aaliyah, is it okay if we ask you some questions?
Yeah.
All right. Team, any questions for Aaliyah?
Well, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask about band.
Mhm.
So did you just start learning that instrument at New Brighton, or had you already had kind of some musical background?
Before New Brighton, I had been playing saxophone for 2 years, so I wanted to join. And then just like this year, I started trombone in beginning band.
That's so cool. And what's the hardest thing about saxophone?
Probably like just moving your fingers right and blowing. It's complicated, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive going from a woodwind to brass.
Yeah.
I know.
Mhm.
Just perfect. Now, when you're honor band, what instrument are you gonna play?
I played saxophone because that's what I'm more comfortable with so far. I've been playing it longer. So.
And eventually you want to switch over to trombone?
I think I'm gonna do both.
Great.
So like equally. So they're both.
Great in the band. You hop from one woodwind to the horn. And then you do tournaments.
Yeah, I
Jiu-jitsu?
do jujitsu and wrestling tournaments.
Mhm.
I have some gold medals. I won all my wrestling ones.
Really?
Yeah.
And same with jujitsu?
I haven't
that-
won every single one, but I've gotten some gold medals.
Wow, that's really great.
Yeah.
Question. So, do you like math?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So music, math, trombone, now isn't that about your size?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you stretch it out.
Yeah. Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
I did trombone,
Oh, you did? That's-
yeah.
Yeah. Robert, any questions from Zoom land?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I don't really have any questions. I just want to say how proud I am, and I know the rest of the board is of you. And I had this little epiphany just now of how proud your parents must be, of you and all of your accomplishments, and certainly on a great track to be a leader. I, as a parent, never had the opportunity to see my boys do what you're doing and give the Pledge of Allegiance and do that. And I just think it's great. Just keep making your parents proud and, being the young stellar leader that you're on the right path for. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
As a sixth grader, what advice would you give fifth graders who are coming to New Brighton?
Um, to not stress about grades because you just gotta kind of focus and do your work. And if you have like a couple B's, it's okay. So just kind of like, don't be so afraid.
Sounds like you really embrace
Yeah.
opportunities too, right? Like seizing the opportunities to try different things and not just focus on
Yeah.
stressing about grades. That's great advice. Thank you. All right, well, we've really appreciated having you
Yeah.
here, so. Oh, sorry, Mr. Dolo.
May I ask a question? I
Yeah.
want to know about wrestling. So you have a meet tomorrow
Yeah.
at New Brighton Middle School. How many matches have you had so far? May I ask your record or is that?
The first one, there's nobody in my weight class, so I won.
Easy win?
The second one, there's somebody in my weight class and I won because, I won. And my third one, it was, I think last Thursday, and he was sort of my level, and I actually didn't know I was gonna have a match. They kind of just sprang up, but I won that one also. And then,
By points, okay.
points.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't really, I'm not good at pointing. And
That means you're slamming them. Right?
then on Saturday, we had a holiday tournament, and I went with the same kid,
Yeah.
for the tournament, and I also got a gold medal in that.
Nice.
And now I won on Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday and then next Thursday and then there's a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm in the tournament.
So you're undefeated for New Brighton Middle School. Great.
All right, yeah.
Nice.
Let's hear it, yeah.
And you can be going down the drive. Awesome. Thank you. We'd love to talk to you like all night, but we have a list of other things to do too. So unless you have any questions for us, we just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Be sure to practice the saxophone and the trumpet.
Yeah. You okay with that? Yeah.
Yes,
stand right there
please.
in the middle.
Miss Hadris? Oh, yeah, come join us. And I just like to say, yesterday, Miss Hadris had an opportunity to talk to us about the New Brighton Middle School band and how special it is to have a sixth grader on the intermediate band. That is very exciting. Yes. Great.
Who was it?
We're looking at me,
Okay.
and then everybody look at mom.
I know you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's really nice meeting you.
Bye. Thank you.
Play the trombone tonight. Carol.
I like how she talked about her meets.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering,
Yeah, no,
Great. Oh, I.
no, great personality, yeah.
Great.
Like that.
All right. Was awesome and onward. So our next item is to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move.
In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now is probably just a good time to note for anyone following along, our superintendent and one trustee are with us on Zoom. Superintendent's there, camera's off, but he's there, you'll hear him. We've adopted the agenda. And next is report out of closed session. We did have a closed session item, and on a vote of 5-0, the board voted to approve the stipulated expulsion in case number 2022-2301. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt and approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
And do I have a second?
Rob.
second.
Robert seconds. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item would be public communications. We don't have many folks here, so I won't read through the items on our agenda, but basically folks can speak on anything that's not listed on the agenda at this time, either by emailing before the meeting, emailing during the meeting, or of course addressing us in person. Is there anyone here in person to speak to a non-agendized item? Okay, I don't have anyone in person. Do we have any public communications on email? We do not. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our standing reports, and we'll start with items from assistant superintendents. So Michelle, if you don't mind starting us off, please.
All right, good evening. Good evening on this wonderfully sunny evening, might I add. Yes.
Great light out there.
The assistant superintendents here have had some road challenges over the last few weeks, so I'm really happy for the beautiful weather today. So for the last few weeks, we're prepping for the audit. I can't even believe it's that time of the year already. We've already got our audit, our pre-spring audit date set. And we're working on our new director of fiscal services, is getting her feet in there, and she's going to start working on that audit. We're fortunate to have the same auditors. I believe this is our 7th year with these auditors, and they are Siobhan and Associates. They are really great. They're really great partners. And I always like to say that because everybody hears the word audit and they're just like, oh, like, they're really partners. I am able to call them and ask them questions and, figure out things ahead of time so that we don't have audit findings. We don't run into problems. So I really enjoy working with our auditors. And I do hear stories from across the state from my counterparts where audits don't go well. And it's a lot of times it's because they don't have a good relationship with their auditors to make sure that everybody's on the same page, what we need to do, what everybody needs to do to make sure we're in compliance. I had the opportunity, I'm going to put it that way, to fill in as JPA president for both our property and liability and our workers' compensation boards, which meant we meet 3 times a year. I'm the vice president of the board, but I was given the unexpected opportunity to be president. President Miller, Jackson Miller, I really give it to you because that was a quick learning curve for me on board etiquette, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoy our JPAs very much. It's a great collaboration between Santa Cruz County, all of the districts in Santa Cruz County, including the COE, for the exception of Pajaro, because they are their own JPA, and San Benito County. All the districts in San Benito County are all part of this JPA for both, one for property and liability, one for workers' compensation. They're both through Keenan. They are fiduciary for it, and they run it. And so it's a great opportunity to not only talk to our counterparts from another county on what's going on, but it's a way to pool our funds to make sure both our insurance, because we have insurance like anybody else has insurance. Somebody trips and falls, somebody, anything. We have storm damage that we had to report on, that we put in claims for, just like you would a normal insurance company. So by able to be in a JPA to pool our funding, it keeps our costs low and our premiums low, which is great. We're getting ready for year end and new year, like all at the same time. Staff is getting out there with our staff at the office sites, working on closing down POs, getting last minute orders in, and that's our process for starting to close down our year. And I just can't believe we're already getting to that point, and simultaneously opening our new year. Escape and the COE has already opened, and we're beginning that process of putting in POs for next year, setting up positions, rolling forward our calendars, and all the components it takes to close a year and open a year in our financial system. And the greatest time of the year, annual reporting, LCAP and ESSER and GEAR and Educator Effectiveness Grant and all of the ones you guys have approved plans for. It's starting this time of year to start reporting out on all of our plans that the board has approved for our spending. So we're gearing up for that as well. And every year it seems like it's going to be the same, and then they change the reporting process. So I've sat through a few webinars on the new processes. So it's kind of where we're at in business right now. A little more technical. I didn't get to do the playgrounds and fun stuff like that. So that's my report out for this week.
Thank you.
Hey, well, we just saw each other last week. So
Yeah.
usually my list is really long. It's not as long tonight.
I am gearing up to attend a CABE conference, which is the California Association of Bilingual Educators, with two of our teachers, one from our middle school, Erica Marquez, and Ilda, who is our new DLI teacher, our kindergarten teacher, and we're going to be going together, kind of representing our interests in serving our community through DLA from a TK through 8 perspective, and really trying to gain some understanding about that. We're also working on a language allocation plan for our DLI program, and what that means is like what percentage of time you're going to focus on what language and what specific content area. So it has to be done really strategically, and you have to have the right supplies and curriculum to go with it. So that's what we're working on with that right now. It's really exciting. I also am the president of AXA, and we are gearing up for legislative action days. And what that means is perhaps Michelle, we're not sure, but a bunch of people kind of in our organization look at what we're facing in education and go to advocate and meet directly with our politicians who can make good choices for our students, our communities, and our schools. So that I'm really excited about. I have gone now 7 times. And I believe that the outcomes of every conversation we have lead to something better than we had before. So I never go in thinking this is an impossible task. I always go in thinking it is a very possible outcome. We have been convening our racial justice task force subcommittees, of which I am on the curriculum and instruction subcommittee. And this past week, we combined our subcommittee on personnel and recruitment and our CNI subcommittee. And we're talking about ways in which we can keep and retain great teachers, provide professional development, doing induction a little bit differently, and also provide ongoing support. So that's something we're really working diligently at. On the curriculum and instruction side too, we have now, I think, 17 volunteer members to join one of our curriculum committees. So reading foundations, math foundations, and social studies are the curriculums that we're looking at purchasing, because we just have some items to address. And then also our parent education component. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to take a day, March 29th, and do roving subs that day so we can make sure everybody can attend. Because a lot of our teachers who are interested also teach in our after school extended learning opportunity programs. So that way all needs can be met. We're working on all of the state backend stuff for state assessments to start. Not anybody's favorite time of year. I'm not an assessment fan necessarily, and the board knows that, but it is a necessary evil. You do have to know how students are doing. You do have to get set up for them to do it. And so that's going on right now. And that would also include not just the CAS testing, but the LPAC testing of our English learners and our PFT testing to how fit our students are. And then let's see, I'm just trying to think of if there's anything that's super important. No, actually my next item that's important is going to be my item to address during our LCAT bite. So that is it for me this week. Okay. Thank you. Next up would be Scott.
I'll make mine kind of brief because my voice is not all that strong right now, but just 3 points of gratitude. First, for Pam tonight for stepping up and being our clerical support person for the board. My executive assistant, Jen, is on a well-deserved mini break out observing some great spring training baseball. So thank you, Pam, for stepping up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to thank the board and as well as Jessica and Michelle for last week's study session. I found it very valuable, as was said at the meeting, not only to delve deeper into LCAP and budget, as well as my goals, but also further connecting with the team and building that coherence. So thank you for that. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the whole community. The recent storms have obviously been a lot tougher on our neighbors down to the south. Nevertheless, it's always nerve-wracking to have to consider closing a school or schools. And I just want to say how grateful I am for everybody being flexible on receiving those announcements. Weather doesn't, say we're gonna weather's not gonna let us know at a certain time the night before. It kind of does what it does, and we have to make the best decision we can. And one of the nights, literally, it changed from an evacuation warning to an evacuation order at around 3 a.m. And so, but everybody was very flexible. The communication was multifaceted from Dr. Sabah at the county office, from the sheriff's office in our county to the Emergency Operation Council, and then flowing to me through our administrative team, and then of course to our parents and community members, so that we would know if we're in school each day. And so just thank you. It's hard, and I know it's hard on you, parents, especially with childcare plans and such, but thank you for being so flexible. That's all for me.
Right. Thank you. We'll move on to CSCA, and we've got Mr. Dolmo here.
I just want to first congratulate Carlo on his new position at SCG. CSCA, there's nothing to report, which is a good thing. Like I've said before, I'm not going to go dig in, find something because there's nothing to report. But he seems really happy. Anything that does arise, we try to take care of it on the lower level, so it doesn't get anywhere. Believe me and Ms. Kennedy should be meeting sometime soon. I know things have been happening, so hopefully, I think it's next week, we're back on schedule for that, correct? Just a little bit about MBMS, if you guys don't mind, the athletics program. The girls volleyball team, they're doing really well. They're all in championships. They all came in first or second place in the league. They're going into they're in tournaments right now. 8th grade starts next week. We have one admin, obviously Ms. Hadrius, 3 teachers, and a couple parents. So it's really good that we're all working together as a team. Whoever's idea it was to bring in the sheriff's department today at New Brighton Middle School for the debate. As a parent, that's great. We should have had that. I mean, I should have had it, but it's just great to have it there because we haven't had it before. And I know I was talking to the sheriff and he said that he had to talk to Capitola PD to get approved to come here because he didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So appreciate that. Hopefully we can continue that as my kids come through as well. The equity walk, I was able to go on that last week. It was really enjoyable, informative. Hoping that I can be asked to go on the next one, which is in Main Street. I'd like to do that as well. Thank you, Nicole Anderson. I just got approved to work at the juvenile hall as a what's the word, volunteer. So, you know, I'll work with those kids a little bit more. Mrs. Kennedy, just to bring it up there, volleyball outside. I talked to Steve about it. The admin PE teachers, I think it would be great for us to get a little outdoor volleyball court by the old art room. Just put it in your mind for that. The field, I know it's coming soon. We can please not have it all turf. We do want to have some life out there, some trees and some green grass up there would be really nice too. Amanda had some big shoes to fill. Kathy was great. She's doing a really great job. All their staff is really happy. You know, I don't know if you've been in there, but the food is really good. I mean, I'm picking up from the shared item, okay, or the kids that leave it on tables like the guacamole and salads. It's really good. I would really tell you guys to come check it out. The new CAP supervisor hopefully will be starting on Monday. Really excited about that. And then Buddy is on vacation till the 30th, so there's no update on that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Great. Next up, we've got items from SEA, and I know we've got 2, but Sarah Galvan, right?
Yes,
Sarah
Galvan. My favorite world sports.
Excellent. That's the best.
Luckily, DR typed it all out for us and we are prepared and ready to go. All right. Good evening, says SEA would like to thank the district for sending 2 of our new educators to the CTA New Educators Conference this past weekend. Olivia Hurt and Mary Agnani both said the days were packed. They learned a lot and they enjoyed the opportunity to network with other teachers just starting off in their classroom careers. We would also like to thank the district for extending the MOU concerning flood relief, since this has obviously been a year full of extreme weather surprises. SoCal Elementary recently had their equity walk, and like Santa Cruz Gardens did last month. And the 3rd and 4th grade teachers at that school are also starting their project-based learning this week. And then we're excited that after a long hiatus during COVID times, Main Street teachers and FOMs are excited to be working to bring back a little bit of the annual auction. The theme this year is for art's sake, and we are hoping for a late afternoon gathering in mid-April to appreciate student artwork. Also, our art donated by local artists and a silent auction. Like we've done in the past, we will have theme baskets as well as a class and grade level art projects to be auctioned off at a silent auction. And my class is doing Starry, Starry Night, and we have a beach themed basket that hopefully Callie will be donating. Let's see here, what else? It's gonna be a family-friendly event this time, and we hope to see some board members there. And what else? Main Street would also like to remind board members that and district staff that they are welcome to come join us during a visit from the #1 New York Times bestselling author, Catherine Applegate, on March 31st at 8:45. All right, it says Santa Cruz Gardens has been preparing for a dance showcase this Thursday night with a guest dance teacher named Gina Garcia.
Yeah.
Is your son participating?
Yes.
Okay. They are also.
Mine can't wait.
They are, I think you had Gina Garcia before, if I remember right. They are also preparing for a family game night the following week. And finally, Santa Cruz Garden would like to thank Greg Broadhurst for stepping in as interim principal this year and to congratulate and welcome their new principal for next year, former longtime Santa Cruz Gardens teacher, Carlo Albano, which is super exciting, but we're going to be very sad to not see any at our site. And since this is the last board meeting before spring break, SCA wishes everyone a restful and hopefully dry vacation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you.
I do a lot better in front of
No, that's great. I'm sorry we didn't have more of an audience for you.
super okay.
We might have 5 people on YouTube. Yeah. Excellent. Well, now we'll take the turns with trustees. If any trustees have items to report, I know several of you do. Anyone want to start first or just do the table? Callie?
I have nothing to report. So
Okay.
there we go.
I'll kick it off. So this is for board members legislative action week, which means that we, with board members across the state, get Zoom meetings with different legislators. So today I met with Senator Laird and Assembly Member Dawn Addis. And it's just a great chance. There's like with Dawn Addis, it was her someone in her office, and it was just 10 of us. So we got to talk about the importance of just giving a school money in the LCFF, which basically means they can spend it how they need to, which that's important to us, right? As opposed to the categorical funds. The other thing that we got to talk about that was close to my heart is not revoking some of that money for the arts and music and instructional materials grant, because that's important. We need that money for what it's named for. And continuing these great programs that we have, like ELOP, the transitional kindergarten, things like that. So tomorrow we meet with Representative Gail Pellerin. And it feels good to be touching base with those people that are, actually holding the purse strings. So that's what I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you for advocating.
Yes.
And if you say, get rid of ADA and just go to enrollment.
Yeah.
One little bit. So I will be meeting, I think next week, with a member of the community to discuss a pathway for a wood shop to the high school, to the community college. I offer a belated Pi Day celebration for yesterday, and I'll move my coat a little bit, but I wore my green.
Oh,
That's it for me.
right. Thank you. Robert.
Yeah, you should move your coat so we can see the green, Phil.
I was for you about that.
I love that. I think that's great, the pathway for woodshop. I'm all for trades and giving our kids every advantage. That's great. I had the pleasure this week, along with Callie, earlier to meet with Senator Laird and Assemblywoman Addis, or her staff, one of her staffers, to talk about some very important things for us. And I found that very valuable. I know we meet with Assemblywoman Pellerin tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Some really great things and initiatives, and certainly supporting the bills that everybody voted for to keep that money in our district and have it go to the right places. I also had a fantastic Friday night, and I'm sorry, Chris, I guess, is Christina still in the room?
No, she's not.
Oh, well, so last Friday night, we had the New Brighton Middle School fundraiser, and I had the pleasure of being a part of it. And what a neat event. I mean, that home and school club at New Brighton, with Anna and Corey and some other people really put on a tremendous event. All of their effort was, it was just terrific, raised a lot of money for the school, and just really happy to be a part of it. And I hope they invite me back next year because it was a lot of fun.
All right, thank you. I have nothing to report, so thank you all for the reports, but we'll move on to our next item. Yeah, we're good. Our first item is a presentation. That's great. Doors opening. Here we come. Presentation from George Lopez, our technology coordinator, regarding current technology updates. And I'm getting that you might have an introduction for it.
I do. I would like, as the board is very familiar with George Lopez, our coordinator, who does all of our wonderful board meetings. And on top of that, does so much more for our district with his very mighty team of 2 employees. And I can't just say enough. George came to the district shortly before I did. So you're on your 11th year. Yeah, your 11th year. Yeah. And so we're super fortunate to have George and everything he's done. It's going to be 12 soon. Yes, I know. He's trying to outdo me. And I just have to say, George has the best shoe collection, and I am a shoe person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
Enrique always asks me if my wife picked them up.
Yeah. So he is going to present to you guys tonight all the wonderful things we've been doing with our tech department. I know we haven't had one in a couple of years, an update from tech. Mainly because with COVID, we've been very techy.
Busy running meetings. So I'm out from behind the curtain. I'm here.
Yes.
So I was looking at the last time I did a presentation to the board, and the date was March 18th, 2020. So I think we're all familiar with that time.
Yeah.
So we came in, and that was our first virtual meeting, and we used Scott's iPhone on a little tripod and broadcasted via Facebook Live.
Right, yeah.
And I did my presentation from my office 2 doors down. So it was a very interesting time. So let's hope the aftermath of this meeting is a little better than the last one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see. So yeah, we moved to broadcasting the board meetings via Zoom and YouTube. It's been much better, much nicer. Working on more camera solutions, so maybe next time someone's presenting, you'll get to see their face, but we'll see. I'm also gonna be mounting a camera and stuff. We'll get upgraded here. Okay, so I can't start a presentation without thanking my team, Marla Sanders and Colin Taub. They're our technology support specialists. That purple really looks good on the screen. Whoa. Okay, so yeah. All they did in the last 3 years, we couldn't have got through these years without them. I mean, just the support they give to the students, especially during the pandemic and everything. Wow, we would not be anywhere close to supporting as many people as we could without them. They're amazing. So in the last few years, we've really bumped up our projects. We installed Ricotta security cameras at multiple sites. We worked with our partners, CSC, to install them at New Brighton and SoCal Elementary. They're all handled online. Big push is to move everything online. We don't have really much hosted on the site. It helps for security and everything. They've been a hit so far. Seems like as soon as we installed them, a lot of stuff went down, like SoCal Elementary. Not a lot of incidents anymore. I think that's largely part to that.
The next night.
Yeah, the next night.
The vandalism decreased by like a lot.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see. They're a great solution that we can expand upon whenever we want. So we'll see where we go in the future with that. The biggest project we've had in the last few years was implementing a new student information system, Infinite Campus. And inside that student information system, we've implemented even more. So we keep changing stuff, adding more stuff. All of our messaging runs through Infinite Campus now. We used to use a third-party system for that. That was a big implementation. We redesigned all of our report cards, worked with teachers, got teacher input. We worked with Jackie Gomez and Lily Espinoza to translate them all for everyone. So everyone has correct translations and updated and everything like that. Yeah. Infinite Campus is a big job and we hope to get even more training in these next couple of years, so. Ongoing project. One-to-one on devices, so since 2020, we really had to pivot, get everyone one-to-one devices. You can see how we have them organized in the classrooms here. We have the new carts for iPads on the right here. So these are our brand new carts for TK through 2. So everyone has these nice organized iPad carts. They're kept in the classroom for TK through 2. And they have little buckets they can put on each table and just divide them out. They're great. In the other classrooms in elementary, we have them stored in the classrooms. This is a newer classroom with the built-in Chromebook solution right there. If we don't have that, we have another cart that are pretty nice. But they're a lot of work to maintain and we go through a lot of them. We have to replace quite a few a year.
Yes.
I think we're ordering like 300, 400 a year just to keep everything up to date. We'll have a new order coming soon.
So that's both Chromebooks and iPads.
Yeah, so we have, we just implemented the iPads at the beginning of last year, 500 of them to start. And with the expansion of TK, we added 20 more this year. It's expanding even more next year, so we'll have another order coming on that too, Michelle. Just spending all the money.
I know. We have to do, but I really would just like to say to George's credit and especially to the team, 10 years ago, we really didn't have a replacement program because we didn't really have devices and we didn't have the money to devote to devices. And as you know, 10 years later, technology is where it is, and that's part of our everyday life right now. And, we've been working really hard to get us to a point where both on student devices and adult devices, we are on a continuous replacement program. So we don't get put in a position where one year we have to buy 2,000 devices at one time.
Wow.
And so 300 to 400 is much more manageable year over year. So it's taken a while, but we're there.
We're getting everyone up and we're upgrading. We're upgrading to the latest Chromebooks like you have over here with 8 gigs of RAM. Those are the nicest ones that we have so far, but we're upgrading everyone to be on that level. Yeah, so 6th through 8th, they each have Chromebooks to take home. And
Okay.
they are pretty rough on them, those middle schoolers, you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But Colin is great with working with that stuff and constantly replacing. We have to order screens to replace. That's the most commonly broken thing. Imagine leaving a pin and closing.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Happens more than you think. All right, so
Do you replace the screens yourself or you send them out?
no, we do them ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, like we just we have parts going bad, so we're constantly cannibalizing other ones.
Oh,
Bring it in, keyboards, whatever we need. So whenever you see those e-waste surpluses.
right. Yeah.
Whenever there's a Chromebook on there, it's basically just a shell.
I see.
We're using every part.
The boneyard.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, programs. So we've implemented a lot of programs in the last few years. Big switches, Titan, our CNS program. So we moved over from
NutriKids.
NutriKids, yes. So this is an hosted system. Online, can be accessed from anywhere. Much more modern, and we've used it to really come up to date there. The last one was pretty old. We even use it for the menus in the cafeteria, syncs with it. Amanda can update her menu on that program and then it'll just sync automatically. So it's pretty cool.
Is this like for kids to pay or what is?
Oh, yeah. So it's how we track the whole lunch system.
Okay.
Yeah. Kids pay through it. We track our free and reduced counts through there. A lot of reporting goes through there.
Yeah, all of our state and federal reporting.
It's a POS system.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's- yeah,
And
along-
also our
yeah,
POS, yeah.
Got it.
And it's the it does it all. And it's where we have to put in our meal planning for the nutritionals to
Okay.
stay in compliance. That's how it was a lot of back end work.
Yeah, the cool thing is the registers now just run off like a touchscreen Chromebook like that. We used to have like a fancy, complicated
Right.
register touchscreen
Uh-huh.
system. And now we just get a Chromebook. If it goes down, we can just replace it. It's very nice. So now that we're on Infinite Campus, we have Clever. So that's how we roster all of our programs. That's how we've been able to support all these new programs without manually doing everything, such as iReady. So iReady was a big assessment software that we adopted last year. And it's pretty nice running through Clever because we can automatically sync it. And we're moving more and more of our programs onto Clever. I think we support 10 different platforms on Clever now. The latest one we're just setting up is Lexio Learning, so that's coming up. But I can't even name all the programs because we've implemented so many in the last few years. I have a few more that I didn't get on the slide, but Destiny Follett, we've upgraded our library system. So now it's hosted online, automatically updates can be accessed from anywhere. I've really had a big push to move everything just online. Host it, we don't need to host it, put it online. Jamf, we have a new mobile device management system. That's how we manage all of our iPads, which is, we couldn't do without that thing.
Warranty tracking too?
Warranty tracking, I believe so. Yeah. You can track it. I mean,
Yeah.
that thing is,
Yeah, okay.
has everything. Yeah. So we deploy all our apps through there. We track our inventory. We push apps. We do everything through there. And we're thinking of expanding Jamf to control, to manage all of our computers. So eventually you might see that come along. Let's see. Any questions? I mean, we do a lot. I can't go over everything.
Oh, no, there's been a lot of progress here
Oh, yeah, yeah.
in the years here. I mean, I remember first time on the board and pulling teeth, trying to get people on email. Everyone else coming around and then even, cutting and pasting for report cards, and some would just
Oh, sure.
print it and then cut it and just
Yeah.
tape it. That was their taping.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, one of my biggest projects I've ever done was migrating us to Gmail.
Mhm.
Now that we're on there, we're never moving.
He broke my heart when he made me give up Outlook.
So these devices, they're locked in these boxes here,
Oh, so,
where your device, where they're being stored.
yeah, so each of these have locks. The cabinets on the right, those are mobile carts, but each one does have its own lock. The one on the left, there's an option to, you see on the right here, there's like a panel that closes. You can
Okay.
Lock it in the middle there, but it's also in a locked cabinet. So
Okay.
it's basically, they don't really use the inside lock, they just lock the cabinet.
All right. Hard to get into.
We've been lucky so far.
Yeah,
And even if they were stolen, I mean, we could deactivate the device, which
right,
we've
yeah.
had to do before. Kids have lost devices more than you think. But eventually we track them down. I don't think there's not too many, maybe a couple that have not been recovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So I have a question. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna open up another can of worms. You
All right.
showed the cameras.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
all this HVAC stuff that we did and the wiring, that's all running through IT too, isn't it?
No, those,
Well-
well, yeah, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, yes
Partially.
and no, partially, yeah.
So the new thermostats create their own mesh network,
Yeah,
but they're accessed online. So they're
Okay.
plugged into one of our switches, but they basically create their own mesh network that's separate from our network.
okay. So like a home network kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just its own
Right,
network
right,
that
gotcha.
connects from thermostat to thermostat. Yeah.
So here's my question. So when we plug in all of those Chromebooks to charge,
Okay.
can we tell the circuit when to start the charge? Because the cheaper rates start at 9 at night, and the worst rates start at 4 in the afternoon.
I mean, that would be interesting to implement. We don't have that capability right now. Right now, it's basically when you plug in a Chromebook, it's just
It's a dumb
basically there's a
circuit.
big surge protector on the back. It's
Right,
just
right,
a
right.
big power strip on the back.
Uh-huh.
We have had that before. A similar device when we Santa Cruz Gardens couldn't handle charging a Chromebook, or, they couldn't charge a Chromebook. So we had to get a device that would time it to after everyone was gone.
Yeah,
But I mean, not cheap to
right.
Not
So I
cheap
wonder
to-
if our climate tech folks might know about that
maybe.
thing.
You can ask them
That's
for
up-
sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, yay.
I mean, yeah, good idea.
And-
We'll ask.
And have you, do we still own the Craftsman data rack?
Oh, that's been
Across from
replaced. So up at Santa Cruz Gardens, yes, it used to be an old toolbox. We'd open the toolbox and we had some rails drilled in there that we had all of our network equipment in there. And our
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, grasp and
We were high tech around here.
I saw that picture.
You don't want to know what this place looked like before I started. I mean, God, it was, we were really scraping stuff together. But I got to give Ivan credit. He was really inventive in the way he did
Oh,
it.
my God.
The money he was given, he was very
Right,
inventive.
right.
He got it done.
Yeah, he got it.
I
That's
have
it for me.
Okay, sorry, you were leaving.
If you were gonna like kind of, dream up the next project that you think would kind of, make us a better district technology wise.
Okay.
I'm just curious what your, where you might aim us toward improving that.
Well, I mean, in the next couple of years, we have our, we're gonna be upping our bandwidth, which is probably be the biggest improvement. So I think next year our contract's running out with Spectrum. So probably the next big change will be upping our 1 gig bandwidth to like 10.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
So we already, I know, a few meetings ago, we approved the COE, a 10 gig connection. So that's our internet connection. And Spectrum was providing the fiber between sites. So that would be the biggest improvement for us right now. Get 10 gig between everywhere. We probably wouldn't even get close to filling it, but we might as well plan for the future. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
we'll be seeing that in a
great.
year. You'll see it.
Well, gosh, my question, hopefully it's not a depressing one, but thinking about Infinite Campus and
Okay.
the prior student information system, right? We had Illuminate before and
Sure.
and I know how much work everyone has to put into learning these new systems and getting them all set up. Do we have any information on like how stable Infinite Campus is? Like
they've been
long-term
around.
projections for them being
Before
our
we,
guys.
before we picked them, we made sure that they're not going anywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, they've been around for decades. They're not going anywhere. They're staying in the business. Illuminate was a weird company that we kind of took a chance. I like the whole county kind of took a chance on them. We all moved to them and then they just shut down that side of the business, but we don't anticipate that. I mean,
Okay.
that was my other biggest project ever. I mean,
Right, no,
moving
I
student information
recognize that.
system, so yeah.
I recognize that and I see that you're telling us you're continuing to do things within Infinite Campus that I still
Oh,
don't
yeah.
quite fully understand, but.
Yeah, but I mean, like more and more stuff happens, like online enrollment, we take all that over,
Yeah.
like. There's a bunch of projects.
Awesome.
There's
That's
like
good.
3 of them, Infinite Campus, Aries, and
Power School,
Power Schools.
those
Yeah.
were the big ones.
Yeah, those are they've been around a long time. Those are the most predominant in the field. That's why those were the 3 that everyone pretty much looked at going back to.
Got
When
it.
we lost Illuminate. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they have quite a few customers in Infinite Campus, so if they shut down, a lot of people would be in trouble.
All right.
I think we're okay. It's one of the things I'm not worried about.
Excellent. Good. I won't either.
And I want to thank everybody who had anything to do with our website, not only keeping it up and maintaining it, but for adding the little clicks and bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Added to it,
We're constantly working on that.
Yeah.
I got to give a lot of credit to Colin. Colin's a good designer. He's a great designer.
Yeah.
He's more of a big picture. I'm more of a, I'll get in there and rearrange everything and make sure it's working on the back end side. So
Good team.
No,
it works.
yeah, I remember we had the weights for,
Oh,
you had to
Oh,
put anything on there.
Yeah.
oh, that's fine, for
That
sure.
was a vacation.
And it was not attractive.
No, I think you've done a good job here.
I mean, I already put up the picture from today for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I know. Yeah, as soon as I get the picture done, that's what I'm usually doing,
Right.
George.
So I don't do the social media thing, but that goes along with that too.
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, they've taken on a lot.
We keep taking more on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
very proud of our
So as
department.
far as the library goes, is there going to be an online checkout of books or audibles through the library? I'm not sure if you to ask.
Oh,
or-
so we're implementing Sora, which is a new program, which isn't quite done implementing yet. But that's kind of an online system to check out books at home. So.
Okay.
Online system.
And then you download it
Yeah,
onto
it's
your,
free.
you download it onto your computer and read it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just like
like
a,
Libby, okay.
yeah, like a Kindle. but-
Kindle, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Sure.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, I had a question, but I forgot what it was.
I'm here.
We know how to find him. He's always here. Just see.
No, I know,
I
I love
You get to be
technology.
at every meeting.
Yeah.
You know, it's been so.
We appreciate having you, obviously.
No,
No,
that's great.
I think it's great. I mean, as far as books, are kids still hauling books home?
Yeah, they are.
You know,
They are.
as many as they had before. I mean, the ones that are assigned to Chromebooks.
I'm here. Her backpack is jam-packed full and it's heavy and she has her
Still?
and all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still there.
Books and yeah.
It's all
Okay.
homework's on
Good.
Chromebook.
Okay.
These are like every night. I mean,
Yeah.
So there's something I want to point out. Our head of IT person here carries around what there?
Oh, yeah, you know.
A handwritten
Yeah,
notebook.
yes.
Yeah, you can replace some analog things.
Yeah.
Right.
Just said.
Say something about the textbook questions. I think it is a
Yeah.
good question. And I think it's probably good for the public to know, and that is that we do have digital versions of our textbooks. They don't always offer the exact same content as the textbook itself. So there are some limitations. So as our teachers kind of go through and they're establishing like what lessons or which readings are going to go next, it's not always available in that virtual or digital version. And so, we're hoping that they'll be more aligned, so that the accessibility will be different, but that's just something that we're noticing with a lot of the publishers. It's not exactly.
It's probably also hard
Okay.
to study
Yeah.
and do your homework, like, you got to read from the book and then type, switching back and forth with one screen.
Mhm.
We all work with multiple screens. Usually it's not that easy.
Yeah.
But I mean, the more we can do online, the better,
We like options. Yeah.
for sure.
So the 3-year span of doing your presentation,
Yeah.
what changes? You seem.
Everything.
I guess, yeah. What that's the slide. I mean, Zoom,
Zoom is
you
huge.
know,
Zoom is huge. I mean, when we adapted the distance learning, it was
Right.
a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We had the
Yeah.
We
screen,
didn't have a
Yeah.
DVD.
the screen
Yeah,
and
it's
the
still there.
speakers.
Yeah.
They're still up there.
That thing's a little harder to take down. It's powered, so we need an electrician to take that down. Yeah, I mean, the classrooms are a lot more up to date, TVs, I mean. We talked about that probably last time, though. That's what we were just finishing that project.
Right.
Back
No,
when all
I-
the bond
it's
projects felt
fascinating.
big.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just want to check in with our folks on Zoom. Yeah, it looks like Robert has a
Yeah,
question.
that's right.
Hey, George, first of all, thanks for the last, month or so, keeping me in touch with everything. You've done a terrific job. My question just kind of goes around the cameras. Do we have enough cameras? Do you have any problems with those? I mean, it seems from what I've been hearing that those are very effective in a number of different ways, and just wanted to see, I don't think we have a security company that monitors that. Those are just recordings, and then if we need to, we can look at those. Do we have enough cameras, or is there anything that you would need to help with security at the school?
Well, if you talk to the principals, they always want more. There's always little spots, Actually, but SoCal, I haven't heard anything. They're pretty well covered. And New Brighton, there's probably a few blind spots, a couple like focusing on the bike racks probably. And then like a spot behind the dance studio. There's a couple more spots we can use them, and we're probably looking at that pretty soon. As far as how they work, there's no one monitoring it. The only people that have access to it are me, Scott, and the principals. And we don't constantly monitor it. It's just if there's ever a thing we hear about, we can look back and it records 30 days of footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
What happens after 30 days?
It gets overwritten with the new stuff.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
So got 30 days we can archive whatever we want.
Okay.
So if we, we could get like 5-minute chunks and you could just archive as much as you want.
Have you thought about getting fake ones?
No.
What?
Fake cameras.
Oh,
If we did, we wouldn't tell.
Right.
No, we haven't. No, they're all real.
There's some invisible cameras.
Yeah, I agree with you, Georgia. It sounds like the bike rack would be an excellent place for a camera.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, we try to adjust as much, we adjusted it as much towards it as we can, but yeah, another one getting that spot would be a lot better. I think that's what Christina told me was the most needed, that spot.
Yeah, those e-bikes are expensive.
Oh, there's
Yes,
more
sir.
and more of those bikes.
Mhm.
They don't even
Yeah.
have a big enough bike area to put them all in there. I see them just like hooked up to the poles and stuff right next to it.
All right, everyone.
All right.
Question at the table. I was going there. I'm coming. It's okay. I want to make sure we were all good here and then, yes.
I more so just wanted to say 2 pieces of gratitude. One for Marla, who's like, anytime, at least I know at my site, anytime we have an issue, she's there, like, it's almost weird how fast she's there. Like, so fast, and she always solves the problem, and it's like going to the doctor, she's like, I swear something was wrong with your ear, that's huge shout out to Marla. Also, I really appreciate the flexibility with the report cards. I know that at least the 5th grade team at Main Street, we were like stressed, we're like, we gotta change this, like, it's not how it used to be. So I know it wasn't easy, so I appreciate all that work, because the report cards like more pleasant for us, and also the like canned comments we were allowed to create. Anyways, we really appreciate all that and made our lives easier. And then one question, just kind of curious, why just SoCal L and New Brighton with the cameras? Not, I mean, Main Street gets its like flipped up tables from the skaters and whatnot, but I'm just kind of curious, what was the like drive for only those 2 sites to have cameras versus the other 2 sites? Because I mean, we all have people coming in off hours doing what they please, we have open campuses, but just kind of curious why 2 sites have them and the other 2 don't.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I think New Brighton and SoCal were the most needed. SoCal had that creek.
Right.
So, I mean, that was a big problem area. New Brighton, I mean, if you want to speak to it, yeah.
Yes, so New Brighton, so we initially had a grant through our JPA, and cameras were what most of us were using that money for. So we few years stored up, so we would have enough to pay for. And New Brighton, obviously being the biggest campus with the most, traffic, I'd call it traffic, made the logical sense. And then the next step was what would be the next elementary. And because there was such a huge uptick at SoCal in graffiti and vandalism, we decided that was the best way to go. Now we've stored up our grant money again, and then we'll then start phasing in the rest of the sites as our grant money comes back up. So we took a look at basically where was the most vandalism and need, and we're working our way that way. Yeah. So,
But also, yes, Marla, she's amazing. I've never seen her upset. Yeah, sure.
That's amazing.
She's watching.
We can.
I'll clip that.
I was gonna say, thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Any other in-person comments, discussion on this awesome presentation? Do we have any?
Just blocking Callie's space.
Any email?
We do not have anything on email this time.
Oh,
I
okay.
sent a letter.
Yeah.
Snail
We're gonna
mail.
send an owl. Yeah.
I'm glad it had such a big eye.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Yes, we really appreciate you and your entire team. Thank you, George.
Thanks for the Chromebooks and
Yep.
Of course,
much
anytime.
paper, and the giant docket,
Yeah, I know. A
man.
lot of changes. All right. Next up is our discussion regarding racial justice and educational equity. And I think that is Scott's when he's ready for us.
All right, thank you. And I just have to say thank you to George and Colin and Marla for all the work they do as well. I had my hand up, but I know it's busy in there. So just their responsiveness is beyond reproach, which I think is what everybody already said, but I just wanted to get my 2 cents in and especially compare what it was like, posting a board agenda on time. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking for everybody involved. And when I first got here, and no offense because they were doing a great job, but we went through a third party, and it wasn't always super. It was a little bit hit and miss whether you're going to get a hold of somebody, and when that docket has to be posted before you leave on Friday to give any peace of mind, and you weren't sure it was a little nerve-wracking. And now, no matter how early or how late we're running, George and his team are always ready to help us get it posted. And in fact, sometimes they'll meander in sometimes and very casually say, I wonder when the board docket's going to be ready, just to keep us on our toes. So thank you, George and Colin and Marla for everything you do, but especially how responsive you are.
No problem.
Thank you, Scott. Just so you know, I can't see it from here if you raise your hand, if you're using an icon or something. So my apologies. But please do feel
No
free to
big deal.
unmute yourself at any point.
No big deal.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of our equity journey, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing, as has already been mentioned tonight, which is really nice that a few people that are in the room participated in our last equity walk at SoCal Elementary School. We had about 22 folks there, and it was a great mixture of teachers from the school site, teachers from other school sites, classified staff, as Mr. Domo had mentioned, and as well as administrative staff from all different departments. And again, I got to give a big shout out to the business department. They've been some of our best attendees, which is really meaningful because if we're going to embrace equity, it has to be across the whole district. So in these equity walks, we focus on 4 areas: cultural identity, relevance, rigor, and relationships. And we use an equity walk tool developed by Nicole Anderson. We break up into groups and we go into different quadrants of the campus so that we're not tripping over each other and having multiple teams go into multiple areas. We come back and we share, and we're getting better and better at quantifying our data. So rather than just having a feeling of cultural identity, we try to quantify. So if as a team, let's say we go into 7 classrooms, a piece of data may be something like, in 5 out of 7 classrooms, we saw examples of students' cultural identity represented in the room. And so we're really just training ourselves. It's not a judgment of the school. We're training ourselves and how to look for, engage for equity in the classroom. And so I really appreciate the fact that we're having so many participants and we're really bringing it down to the school and classroom level. We'll have our next equity walk and our last one of the year at Main Street, and that's on May 8th. So if any of the board members are interested in attending that one, please let me know, and we'd love to have you be part of it. I would just say that thinking back to the SoCal Elementary walk, well, first we'll have a nice summary from Nicole. She does a nice summary on each one of these, really putting together all the data points and everything. And that's really meaningful and helpful, but it's like a lot of these things, it's the discussion, the rich discussion that is really the best part of the day. And I know we had some comments, even little things like byproducts, like just having teachers from one school come over to another school and see all the great things and have that positive affirmation of like, wow, that's something I can take back to my classroom. That in and of itself, beyond just the equity work, is really meaningful. So I can break down barriers. Let's see. We also have an upcoming governance workshop with Nicole Anderson and her colleague coming up next week, 1 week from tonight. So while we work on our own governance team and continuously improving it, we do that always with an equity lens and in those board workshops. We also have a racial justice task force meeting on April 18th. And then the final piece I wanted to share is that one of the subcommittees of the Racial Justice Task Force is student behavior or student discipline office referrals. And so that's something that we've been trying to get a little bit more consistent in our district to make sure we're doing it in the same way at each site and in the same system. So going back to what George had said, and Infinite Campus being really where we do most of our work, the principals, we worked with the principals and they collectively agreed to do all of their office referrals, like a student is misbehaving in class and gets sent to the office, to record all of those in Infinite Campus. That may seem like a minor thing, but change is not always easy. And previously, each school site was kind of doing their own thing. Some might do it in an Excel spreadsheet, some might do it in another format. So now all agreed, we kind of went in there and George helped us clean up all of the referral codes and everything. And so now all the districts, or now all the schools are entering that data in one place. And we just pulled our first report the other day and really kind of diving into it and seeing what else we might need to add. So not something ready to present yet, but it did have about 100 entries. I guess that could be good or bad, depending on how you look at it, but it's recorded, and that's the good part, and it's recorded in one place. So we'll, rather than having to take that data and tie it back to something for demographic data, it can all come out of Infinite Campus, and we can disaggregate those office referrals the same way we do suspensions and say, are we overly identifying students with learning disabilities for office referrals? Are we over identifying students from any one particular race or background for office referrals? And so that's going to challenge us to continue examining our own biases, and we'll have the data to back that up. And I would just welcome anybody in the room after the board has their chance to ask questions and comment, if they'd like to say anything about their experience in the equity walk in SoCal to do so.
Questions or comments from the board?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about just some of these like dashboard numbers that we see with the achievement gap. Does the Racial Justice Task Force look at that data, or is that like a goal of the Racial Justice Task Force, or is that something totally entirely different?
No, it's definitely connected. Excuse me. It's one of the places we started at, is looking at that dashboard data, which is really kind of like the proverbial 30,000 foot view, and then continuing to, to drill down to see how we can make a difference in those predictable data patterns, right? So that if it's predictable that students are English learners are not going to achieve as high as their English only counterparts, how can we interrupt that predictable data and make a difference? And so that's one of the reasons the Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee of the Racial Justice Task Force was formed. So yes, it's definitely connected back to the bigger picture of the dashboard.
And then we have Nicole Anderson for, is it one more year? And then it's a total.
Oh, well, that will be up to the board.
Oh. And after her, what was, do we have a plan for how we initiate some of our learning?
Yeah, so their goal, obviously, like any good consultant, is to make sure that you can fade off of them, right? And so doing all these equity walks, building up, the ability for multiple staff members to be able to conduct an equity walk and know what to look for. Really, the idea is that we continue those processes without their direct support.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Anything else from the board?
Good.
I'd love to hear from anyone else who has any questions or comments on this. You want to tell us about the equity walks or anything relating to this? Yes.
I have a question just on the, it's very cool that now there's like a universal system for recording referrals. I'm just kind of curious if there was any type of training that took place for the principals as far as like consistency in recording those, and
We're also,
just looking for consistency and like what classifies an incident to require a referral, and
is it only done by administration, or is teachers supposed to be doing that also?
just a little clarity.
Questions that we have.
So consistency is everything. And I would say that right now, no, there's not that, strident level of consistency across sites. So that will be ongoing. We have a principal's handbook in which that is a perfect item for that, especially between the 3 elementary schools, right? I think we could all agree that while, there's certain behaviors that would be consistent across all sites, middle school can be, an item unto itself as the only middle school in the district of Brighton. But between the 3 elementary schools, that is definitely something that we'll want to work on and continue to tighten up in terms of consistency. And in terms of whether it comes from just the teacher or principal, right now that part is different between sites. And what we decided this year is that we only wanted to bite off so much change. And so you will find at one site the principal does it, and perhaps at another site the teacher who refers a student will do it. But we didn't want to mandate that change too quickly. The change that we all agreed to enforce this year is that it gets entered into one spot. So baby steps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you, Scott, for the update. Thank you all who've been able to attend the equity walks and continue doing the work. I look forward to the next Racial Justice Task Force meeting. It's been a real pleasure being able to serve on that committee and observe the work. Do we have any email
Nothing on
Questions or
email.
comments on this one? Okay, all right. Well, thank you. Then we'll continue on to our last discussion item, which is our LCAP fight.
Right, well, every time we meet, I share a little bit of information about how we're doing with regard to some of the goals that we have set forth in the LCAP and with specific alignment to certain actions underneath those goals. So the goal that I'm going to be talking about tonight is goal 2, which is through the use of data to identify research-based classroom differentiation, professional development, systemic, equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive supports needed to close predictable achievement gaps. I will be talking about action under goal 2.4 related to culturally responsive and school inclusion practices and support. And so as the board knows, for the past 3 years, we've been partnering with the County Office of Education, Melissa Roberts and Candace McIsaac specifically. And we partnered with them during COVID. And one of the things that one of the reasons that we partnered with them is because I had done some reading. I love brain research, and so this book was brought to my attention, and I'm thinking like, okay, what do we know about the adolescent brain? What do we know about the young developing brain that we need to extrapolate to be better instructionalists or understand more about how kids are learning? But it became increasingly important during the time of COVID, right? And so we were able to leverage a free partnership with them, and that's been ongoing for 3 years. And this specific development was geared towards our principals, because our principals didn't all come to the table with the same a feeling of efficacy in looking at instructional practice and curriculum. So some of them hadn't been a classroom teacher for certain grades, so there's a lot of concern on their parts that they needed to be equipped with more information. So, you know, the best place to start was with some knowledge about how the brain operates and how we can kind of build from there. So this has been an ongoing process. Every month, the principals and I meet and we try to stay out of the weeds. We try not to talk about like who's in the parking lot, but really how our kids are learning and how to best support that. So Candace and Melissa have been working with us since that time 3 years ago. And we've gone from reading the book and kind of trying to pick it apart and understanding what the research says to like what to look for in terms of their practice as leaders and what to support in terms of practice for like practitioners. So one of the things, and this goes to your question, Callie, specifically on the item right before this, one of the things that Melissa and Candace asked the principals to do is bring data points. We want to know about the data at your school. We want to know what you're noticing about it. And we want to know, how you can use some of the information that you've learned to try to address some of those things. And so they're really digging in deeply, not just with the Racial Justice Task Force, but also with the work they're doing with Melissa and Candace. And they don't get any free passes. So it's a gentle request to bring in data, but they know that I have the data anyway. So it always comes to the table. And right now, most of the principals are working on how they're looking at learning partnerships. And that's an element that you could learn about in this book. I'm happy to lend it out. I have many copies for myself. And we have ordered copies for each of our school sites, although I know that there's a bigger need, so we can definitely get more of them. But through the learner partnership lens, it really connects well to all of the work that's already been done in our district with social emotional learning and the sort of support of our students' kind of cultural identity. So when they're going to classrooms and looking at evidence of some of these things. And so what I would say is we're a long way from being like the best possible leadership practitioners, but they are very, very willing participants in the learning, which I really appreciate. It is an action and service that we have under the LCAP. It's actually one of them that costs us nothing. We have been super fortunate to have Melissa and Candace have kind of extended themselves to us. The best part about their relationship with us is that we've asked for them to develop our staff and our certificated staff and our classified staff. So that's kind of how we're digging in. They've done one Friday PD with us, and we're gonna continue to leverage that, work with them. And our classified staff have shown interest in getting, more people trained, like campus supervisors and all of the kind of people who touch kids every single day. So they're willing to do that work with us on an ongoing basis. So into next year, it'll be more practitioner work, which we're really excited about. And I will just attach this to our planning through the Racial Justice Task Force, because the Curriculum and Instruction Committee is really looking at ways to not take this learning and this learning and this learning and have them all desperate parts, but all really kind of weave together so that we can ensure that students are getting what they need from us. But also to turn the ship when we need to turn the ship. So it's, partly looking at data and saying, like, what can we do in the classroom, but also what can we do as a system holistically. Do we need to blow it up? Like, sometimes you need to blow up the system, like maybe you design something differently, but now we know better. And I think it's always important to, kind of be able to say those things out loud. And Melissa and Candace help us do that. So it's been really nice to be able to work with them. So that is my LCAP bite just for tonight. And again, an action under the plan, not a costly one. Thank you. Questions?
I just missed, what position do Melissa and Candace have?
They actually, we were introduced to them through the new teacher project. And so they work on the induction for all of the new teachers into our county. Melissa has changed her position since that time. So she is actually their Director of Equity and Inclusion. And I hope I'm saying the title right. So she's got a bigger job now. But just because she has a bigger job now doesn't mean she doesn't love us. So they're giving us all free love still. But they really are invested in SoCal, and that I believe it's because our practices here really marry well to the kind of work that she's hoping to get done across the board. And both of them they're very gentle spirits, carrying very big messages, which I believe makes them very powerful.
Yep.
So, like, Robert,
Oh, just quick, I think I missed it. Sometimes the volume's a little out. What were the PDs on?
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Oh, so what were the professional development? What are the trainings on?
So the PDs that we do with the principals are every month, and that's part of the Leaders in Learning PD that I do with the principals. And that doesn't come from me, that comes from outside experts. And in this case, it's Melissa and Candace. So that's every month. It's culturally responsive education and the brain, like how the brain responds to being culturally responsive practitioners and leading for that change. And then the PD that I was referring to that Melissa and Candace came to for our staff on a Friday PD about, I want to say 2.5 months ago. 2.5 months ago is like, I don't have an idea of time. Maybe longer, but every day seems like 2 months at a time sometimes. But they are doing the same work. So they are working from the same reference point. Robert, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the book.
No, that's great. I think that's invaluable. And I love that you're reading the book and into the brain and how it works. And I know new theories and new things come up all the time. So it sounds like we're staying cutting edge.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're definitely working on it. Thank you.
And how does that relate to the teachers and how they teach?
Well, I think, it's interesting because our teachers do a lot of what the books suggest are good practice, right? So, we know that if specifically we're looking at this book, this framework, and we're looking at learning partnerships, so much of the work that we've done in our district kind of relates to the partnership between the teacher and the student. There's some other domains that we could use some more assistance, right? And so there's another domain talking about like how we build our communities, like understanding of what happens in schools and how to leverage our community members
families, all of those kinds of people in the teaching and learning processes. So, you know, while I think there's a lot of things that are really great, there's a lot of things that we're still working on. So,
Thank you very much.
So, what kind of brainer does it talk about, and do you guys work on the relationship between, nutrition and physical activity?
So yes, there's a whole section in this book about the brain. That said, there's a lot that we're understanding about mindful practice that has already been part of the system of this district, but also some more research is coming out about what they call somatic practice.
Right.
And that's understanding how your body feels in a moment of learning or friendship or, you know, discussion, and to really work on kind of having our students do the practices that we're doing, but also understand what's happening in their body as they're engaging in some things that are difficult or some things that are easy and those kinds of things. So we know that our bodies feel better when we treat it well. Right. And so that comes up in, you know, some of this research that we're reading in about somatic practice. If I drink more water, I feel better. If I'm eating in a more healthy way, I feel better. Right. And I do think that our nutrition department is really responding to that. I mean, you've heard some of the updates. You know, we're getting so much new great food for our students that we haven't had the opportunity to have before. And so it just shows you kind of how like the village works. Right.
Right.
We're all kind of just trying to take our part of it and move it.
Okay.
I think you answered my question, because I was just thinking about what actions and services to do to close the achievement gap. So I think you pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I mean, the achievement gap has been around since the beginning of time. I mean, really, we've looked at a timeline of how education began and then where it is today. It began as an inequitable organization and system. It's still not quite equitable yet, right? But we now say that it is, we know that it is, and now we're looking at the research that says this is how you start to unpeel it, right? And I would say that's been a difficult journey, because I think before we wanted to say, not me, not the people here, but like, this is how school goes, so we're going to do how school goes, right? When I was in school, I didn't know another way to do school. But now we're saying, well, is this the right way? And if it's not the right way, then can we think of other ways? That's brave. It's brave and courageous, you know, because we just have the ability to do that. And in our district being a little bit smaller, it's so much easier to take a look at it differently. Right? It's not a big ship to turn. It's a ship, and there's a lot of work. But it's just we have practitioners that want to do the work. And we have the readiness.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've all had our chance for questions here at the table. Any questions or comments from our audience? You guys are all on the spot every time. Any questions on email?
Nothing on email.
Okay. Well, thank you. As always, your LCAT bites are helpful and informative, and again, just really help us pull it all together when we look at the plan in its entirety. So it's always appreciated. I know, but then when you look at the whole thing and you're like, I remember that one. It's like you see your little friends that you heard about earlier in the year. So it's really helpful. We're ready for our action items though. So that's exciting. Our first action item is to consider adopting a resolution to authorize participation in the HVIP. This is a really long one. Public school bus set aside for small and medium air districts.
That would be me. First off, I'd like to thank the board for spending the rest of the evening with me. We'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible, since I have the next 4 action items. We talk about long. What we cut out of there was what HVIP actually stands for, which is the Hybrid and Zero Emission Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Program. So this is a program that we've been working on for about a year now. When I say we, I mean Pam, like wholeheartedly. Pam has been working to get us a free bus. And basically, this is a program the state of California is offering for districts who are still using diesel and gas buses. to move towards electric buses and our, our push in the state to go more green. And so we have been granted a bus. Yay. But it's still a long process before we will actually be given a bus. It's a whole other process. I would say at least a year would be like probably more before the bus is built and we actually get it. But the next step in the process is for the board to approve this resolution saying that now that we have made the cut basically to receive a bus, the board does a resolution so we can move to the next step of the process in this application process to actually receive the bus and then start having it built. So it's a great program. The interesting thing, because when you think about, especially in public education, so many grants and so many different opportunities really only come your way when you are a high unduplicated count district or free and reduced. This particular program, because it's run through the state of California, that isn't how they measure if a district is in need of a bus, and it goes by air quality, how old the buses are, what fuel they're using, what impact it would be to our environment to go with an electric bus. And so part of the reason that part of our infrastructure upgrade program does include EV stations is for the eventual transition to electric vehicles for our fleet. So in a long way, this is, if the board could approve the resolution, then we have 30 days to then complete this part of the process.
When you say bus, what's a bus?
And school bus.
I mean, like
yes.
big, huge.
We would not, no,
No.
we wouldn't go for like 120 passenger bus.
Okay.
It's a bus that's more comparable to the size of the bus that we currently use,
Okay.
which are the smaller passenger buses.
20 students.
Yeah, I think
Ish.
yeah, like that, and the replacement on that. So yes, we wouldn't go from having the size of buses we have now to
Okay.
like a PD bus. Yeah.
I can't imagine how much juice one of those big ones would take.
I know.
Like,
And a whole fleet of them. Like, yeah.
That's
yeah.
amazing. Robert, it looks like you had a question.
Where do you see the bus being used primarily?
It will replace one of our buses. Currently, yes, because that's the part of that is part of the program to retire our buses that are diesel or fuel running for a better emissions. And so we would retire one of those. We had to force retire one recently. Mr. Dolmo, it was into forced retirement because it could no longer be fixed. So I'm very, very much into this project because I would really like to get rid of our fuel buses.
Is there a need for more buses? I mean, and are we looking at possibly at some point picking up kids and bringing them to school like obviously other school districts and schools have? Is that, and would we have to retire an old bus? Or could we possibly keep that in case we needed it for a rainy day, bringing kids to a game or something along those lines? Or would this bus really cover all of our needs?
Oh, you asked me 3 questions. So one,
Right.
yes, no, this would not cover all of our needs. I mean, obviously we do have a need currently for 3 routes. So 3 buses. I mean, that's not to say that our demographic of students wouldn't change. I mean, right now we are only providing transportation for our special ed students that have written in their IEP that transportation is part of that. And a later agenda item coming up is on a transportation plan that's part of the adopted budget. So it is the push in California for school districts to offer transportation to every, student really in the district, more specifically to our unduplicated students, first off and foremost, and our students that have it written to their IEPs. So it's kind of a long answered question to, one day the state may require that we go back to busing all students.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see that our district could have the capacity for that. We couldn't have room for a fleet of 50, 60 buses out there, nor could the state of California have enough bus drivers for every district in the state to provide that. So I think right now all of our buses are in need of repair or replacement due to their age. So, keeping them till they die has been what we've done. I'd like to get away from that. But yeah, I mean, there isn't something to say that we would have to get rid of it until I believe it's 2032 think 2032 is when the state moves over fully to you can no longer have or purchase buses that are not, or vehicles that are not emissions free.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, we saw the electric buses at the CSBA conference.
Yeah.
Back in the fourth quarter, and boy, they are great. It is really cool. It's fully, wheelchair accessible, and obviously, fuel efficient. So, and green. So terrific.
So a question, does the program cover repower? Buses that are converted from diesel to electric?
Not this particular program, I don't believe, because it's the point of this one is to purchase they're providing the new built bus.
I know this wouldn't be a new bus, but it would be an electric bus.
It would be a new electric bus. It would be
No,
built.
the repowered ones.
I know. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. What you're saying is this grant doesn't cover that, but I believe there are grants that do cover that.
Okay.
If the bus is able to do it.
And does PV still have an auto shop?
Gosh,
Because
I
if
don't
they
know.
do, they should start repowering buses.
Yeah, I know it's a good gig to get into.
It really is.
Yeah, I know they're saying it's easier now to get one of those.
Yes.
For anyone who's not quite following what Phil and I are talking about, is taking old school buses or vehicles. Right now they're doing it and they're converting them into electric. They're removing their engines and doing the whole thing.
Right.
And it's becoming cheaper. As we move along, it's being cheaper to do that than to purchase a brand new one, than to convert an old one.
And they're using reclaimed electric vehicle car batteries. So as like the old Priuses, they pull out those batteries, they were using those in the repowers.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to go that far.
Well, and for us, it works well as well, because our buses don't travel the great distance, like say like an SLV bus or somewhere
Right.
in a bigger district that they're having to go, maybe 50 miles a day or something. Yeah.
Thank you.
But so the bus, no fiscal impact, so the buses are completely free. And then from here forward, what we'd be paying for is the charging of it versus like gas. So that's really kind of the breakdown. And then how does this relate to that future agenda item of the busing plan?
In the sense of, obviously, the push is going to be for more buses to transport more children. In that sense, yes.
Michelle, are we now going to have a charging station in order to charge the bus? And would that be accessible to staff who owns a hybrid or an electric car?
Yes and yes. The EV station installation is part of the infrastructure upgrade, and it'll be here at New Brighton. It will dual. It'll do the buses and it will do vehicles. We haven't worked out yet quite the details on that one. You can have many things installed with that. Like, is it accessible 24/7? Is it only accessible during 8 to 5? Do you want to charge after hours and put in something like that? Do you want it open to only the public, or put a keypad on it for only employees? Like, there's a whole multitude of ways. So we haven't really gotten that far in the process yet, since we don't have it installed. But the hope is right now, also, just as a side note, EV stations really are the wave of the future. And so right now there are a lot of grants that are popping up to install more EV stations in different areas for accessibility to the public. So that's another thing that we're looking at with Climate Tech to partner with.
And then the fee structure for to charge someone to charge their vehicle. Because if you don't, it's a gift of public funds.
We haven't gotten that far.
Yeah.
So, it's such a new territory. I haven't even had a chance to talk to the auditors about that.
Yeah.
And then did you have a choice with this specific program, or like, were there multiple programs you could have chosen to get a bus?
There are different programs. At the time when we applied, this was the only one available for applying for, basically, for the EV, for the electric bus.
Because apparently we're a small and medium air district.
We are. Our air is not that bad. It's just a little bad.
So LA might have a different.
Yeah, they eat up a lot of
different
grants.
situation. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so do we talk to the city or the county about this? Because the city and the county, a decade ago, created the climate action plan that we're a part of. Schools weren't required to do it, but city and county governments were. And so, but they're responsible for if we do or don't. So I think if you let them know that we're gonna do this, that they can write it down and say, hey, we did something.
We did it. We applied, we complied.
Yeah. right.
Okay, I will.
Yes.
Yes.
Doing our part to
Yes.
keep the air cleaner. Goodbye diesel. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from our audience?
I don't have a question. I do want to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. She's actually letting me, take the third graders to NC Marks.
Oh,
NC Marks next Tuesday.
Oh.
School bus, so
Yay.
hopefully we can do more of that for the other schools as well too.
So many, Mr. Dole and I were talking about that. So many students now they don't get to say, when I was in school and I rode the bus, like they just don't get that opportunity anymore. So we talked about anytime a kid can ride a bus, I can't see how that isn't fun. Like, you know.
Absolutely. All right. Any?
Nope.
Nothing
Nothing on
on email? Okay. Well, with that being said, this is a resolution, but before we can vote, we do need a motion. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Pam, when you're ready, we'll take our roll call vote.
Trustee Rodriguez,
Aye.
trustee Donnelly,
Aye.
trustee Edmondson.
All right.
Trustee Jackson Miller,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson,
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Exciting.
Thank you both. Thanks for being here, Pam. And
Finally,
on this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
you finally got a free, and by the way, those things are, depending on what the size is, anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We hope it has a very long and wonderful life with us.
Yes, yes, it will.
All right, another item from Michelle, but
Yeah.
next is to consider approving the sales quote from, is it Silky or Silk?
Silky.
Silky
Yeah.
Communications for a two-way
Yes.
two-way radio system. All right. I'm just gonna say it's gonna be item 8B.
Yeah, there you go. So normally, this is not something I would generally bring to the board for approval. However, I just think this is such a wonderful opportunity. I wanted to have the board, be able to approve this contract. With all the work that we're doing, not only with upgrading our facilities, we've looked at different safety features and different ways to enhance safety within our schools. And one of the things that since probably 5 years ago, maybe way pre-pandemic, George and I started conversations about two-way radios between our school sites and being able to communicate from the district office to the school site. Now we have the red phone, the bat phone, the phone that rings, all the time strangely, and that is for an analog line. I got it right. So that if something happens with the internet, those phones, and things like that, no power. What this system will do is we will always have a path of communication. The repeaters are put on top of the New Brighton gym that have line of sight basically to Santa Cruz Gardens, Main Street, SoCal. So there is a base station put in each of the offices. And then that station has, George will correct me if I'm wrong here, they have basically like a radio, where you can talk into it. And so you can have communication in a time of a disaster between the district office and the school sites, and from school site to school site. Principals can talk to each other. It also has the capacity, which is what we'll be doing in the beginning, is programming into the walkie-talkies that the principals have a second station, a channel, and that channel during a time of an emergency can be switched to the second channel that only the administrators at the site level and the district office staff will have communication if they need to go on and off channel while they're mobile and not necessarily within the office. So the base stations are going in the offices because we know that there's always somebody in the office if something were to happen. And then the principal always should have their walkie-talkie on them for mobility purposes. And then, the next phase of the plan will be to then what we can do to roll out additional walkie-talkies, consistency within our walkie-talkies, and providing more of them district-wide in that support. So it's this is the first step in the process of dual communication.
Questions?
wow, it can reach through from all the schools?
Yeah, I know.
It really,
Yeah. I know they went on the roof.
We already did a test, so we set up a main one already of the New Brighton gym. And then our guy at Silky, Fernando, went around, he gave me a handset that connected to it, and I set my office here. He drove to every school, went inside every office and we communicated with people
Wow.
just from that.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Amazing. And then principals, would they have two walkie-talkies on their person?
Just one with 2 channels. So the one channel would be within the school
staff.
site, yeah, and the second channel would be within the emergency line.
And so the new rate,
Oh, I was just gonna say, this sounds so cool that I think the board members should get them, just so I can call Ted and Amanda.
I know, like I said, it's something I've hoped for the district for a very long time. It was something in my previous district that they had implemented, and I just thought, I mean, we're small, but still, having that communication between sites in a time of emergency can be beneficial, especially if there's no electricity, no internet, something like that.
Yeah, I think thinking through some of the disasters that we've seen, thinking about climate change, thinking about other things that have unfolded in the news in our area and other areas, planning ahead and having this level of communication is really important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
so I did look up the stuff and I see the base stations say that they can have 1,000 channels. I don't know what the handhelds do, but if we're going to have a channel for leadership, they did say that that they have a facility for encryption. So you might want to have an encrypted channel because anybody could listen to any of this stuff. All I have to do is dial in your frequency and I can listen.
Yeah. Yes.
So if there's going to be talking about students and stuff, then I think it's got to be a secret channel.
I think that the hope, basically for these would be to use in a time of an emergency where we're directing, staff where and what to do. But yes, looking into that, that's kind of, having multiple channels on any walkie can lead to, you've got just confusion going on. So yeah, that's why right now we're limiting it to just at the principals so that we can kind of get that baseline set and then see where that goes from there.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the audience? All right, any emails on this?
Nothing on email, but I would just really like to say, I wish I could take credit for this, but this is 100% George. It is 100%. He has done all of the hard work on this, and I asked him to take it on, and he did with gusto. So thank you very much, George.
It happened just like that, right?
Yeah. According to me, it didn't.
No, it's great. I think
Yes.
this is great.
So nothing on email.
Okay, thank you. Great, sounds like we might be ready to make a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the sales quote?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
Yeah,
I'll second. Robert got it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right, got ourselves a two-way radio repeater system.
What's for lunch?
George is like, it's in my cart. All right, next up, yet another Michelle item, is to consider adopting the student transportation plan.
So as part of the 22-23 adopted budget, the governor set aside funds for expanding the transportation program for all California schools. And that is to, like I had mentioned earlier, offering transportation services to more specifically, our students of need and our students that have that in their IEP as a mandatory requirement for transportation. And so while it be a lofty goal that I applaud our state for, the implementation of this is a little bit more difficult for districts to actually do. So there is a formula within the plan. You'll see that the plan is not overly detailed because it isn't something that can just happen overnight. Like we do work with our public transportation systems to try to find if a student needs or has the ability to take public transportation, we can offer them free bus passes and other ways of transportation to help mitigate those needs. But at this time, our district has only been able to ever offer transportation to our special education population. And if they did years and years ago, long before I got here, that would have been a day way in the past. So while I wish we could, it isn't something that is on our immediate future of being able to provide. So part of at the bottom of this plan You'll see a grid of a cost grid. So just as a kind of to read, our total cost of transportation for 21-22 was $245,000. And that was, you know, encompassing salary, maintenance, and everything that goes to run the department. Our add-on is $168,000. This is what is added on in our LCFF calculation. This was when we switched from revenue limit to LCFF. The add-on part was what a district was receiving for transportation prior to 2013 and the implementation of LCFF. That amount of money was based on that year and has never changed since 2013. So our costs, as you see, have increased substantially since then, but the district has never received any additional funding to provide those services. What the state is saying is take what you paid, take what your add-on is, take 60% of what you paid, and the $147,000 is what you would receive. So in our district's case, that would be less than the amount we're currently receiving, which is $147,000. So it would be, I mean, theoretically speaking, we would get less than what we're already getting if we implemented the plan. And so that's not feasible for us. So right now, what it would mean is we continue to receive our add-on, and districts, this is mainly geared towards and was written for larger districts that provide home to school transportation for gen ed students and special education students currently, and are not charging for that. And this is to help them. This $300 million is going to those districts. Districts like ours will not benefit from this program. So like I said, it's wonderful in its intent, but it's not something that can be implemented, not for a very long time, unless the state puts a lot more money into not only funding transportation, but produces hundreds of thousands of buses in the state of California for this to happen. So, however, a few of us CBOs were like, we're just not going to do a plan because it's not going to work. Well, that wasn't an option. So if we don't present a plan to the board as a hope for the future, it's an automatic audit exception and we will get a finding. And so hence why I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I do have to present this to the board, but I don't want anybody to walk away thinking tomorrow we're going to be able to provide transportation for every student in our district. That's not possible. So, but it is a plan and it is goal. So after this, my evening, I'd ask the board to present our plan.
So some of the things that I heard were that it's mandated.
The plan is mandated, yes.
Having a plan is mandated.
Yes.
And then is there a date of execution that's mandated?
We just have to write a plan and present it to the board, and really statute all it says is it never gets revisited again. I know it's such a strange part of the budget, the 22-23 budget, and it's only part of that 300 million. And I don't know if that they've never really specifically said if that 300 million is ongoing necessarily, because anything that can discontinue being ongoing that isn't part of the base. So
It's another form of an unfunded mandate.
it is.
Right.
So we're made to spend the money to do the report and then get nothing.
Yeah. And for our district, unfortunately, it isn't a windfall.
And then I just feel a little nervous about adopting a policy where we know that we might potentially have to, there's like a funding gap. Would we ever get in a bind in the future where we say, whoops, well, I guess we have to pay for all these buses? Like,
No, not as this is
how
written.
works?
That's not how this is written. It's
Okay.
written that the plan is our goal. What are we doing to take steps to make this happen? And part of that is working with our partners, like our public transportation partners, busing, in those different organizations, on how we could help our students take those forms of transportation, and they offer their own programs for free transportation. So it's really, it's a plan with a goal to help provide transportation for students. But the plan is never, you're never forced to implement the plan if you can't afford it. Right, yeah.
Okay.
Those items that you just mentioned cost money. So are we going to have to lay out funds with public transportation departments or something like you just said that we'll never get a return on unless we institute the plan?
Well, currently speaking, if the student is unduplicated and or is homeless or foster youth, which would be unduplicated, they already are, they have the option to receive this sort of support through the district that we pay for through Title I funds. So it wouldn't be a cost to the general fund because it's already covered through federal monies that come through for that exact mandate.
Right, and there's no further outlay of funds for trying to see if this plan is viable or creating, hey, in 5 years, write me up a plan that's, that you're going to charge me money for or something like that?
I can't speak 100% to the future. I mean, the state and the governor could always write a new, amendment to, AB 185. But I mean, it is something that, advocacy groups have said is just not possible. It is just not possible. So I don't know how far our, legislation is going to take this, knowing that 300 million is not going to cover anything that needs to be covered. So I like I said, I think it's a push, and it's a push in the right direction to provide students who can't get to school with transportation. I just think it's going to take us longer to get there. If that's what the state wants, they need to provide more funding for it.
It's kind of like it's taking 5 years to get the radios, so we're starting here, and then 10 years from now, we'll get something.
Got a goal.
So I have a question though. So this is living document, I'm guessing. So will we need to reapprove this when the answer to question 4 comes in?
No,
Okay.
I checked. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and just the, so students, the LCF that, the unduplicated students receive funding, or we receive funding to bus them?
No, we don't receive
Or
money to
transport?
bus them, but if the students needed public transportation, part of Title I set aside is to provide them with, bus passes or, transit passes or something like that if a student has a need for it, which we've done in the past. Yeah. Yeah, and usually our counseling department lets us know if they know of a student who would require something like that. Typically the middle school for a K-8, not very many of our littles ride the bus. Yeah.
No, I didn't have a question. It was just a comment that if I know the state, if something changes and funding actually does going to become available, they will require an entirely new plan.
Yep.
With, right, lots and lots of documentation and
Right.
some kind of wonky formatting, and
And they'll have a plan before they have a goal.
quite possibly.
Yeah.
But
Thank you for
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
explanation. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's, it was really difficult, just because it's so hard to, like, I mean, every plan we bring to you usually has money attached to it.
Right.
And now I'm bringing a plan to you guys that doesn't have any money and we can't actually do, but it's required that I had to figure out a way to, look at it in a way that still left us options in the future.
Right.
All right, well, if we don't have any further questions from the board, I'll check in with our our audience folks. Nope, no questions on that. Any emails on this one though?
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email. All right, then, so we have to consider adopting this plan. Do I have a motion to adopt our student transportation plan?
I'll move.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, thank you for the work on this.
Thank you.
Plan. And last but not least, our final action item to consider approval of our second interim budget report.
Yes, so George is bringing me a clicker.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, George. Very good. So, all right, so tonight's second interim really is more of a recap of what I've already presented to you guys in the last few board meetings, not only with the governor's proposed budget. Part of our board study session was looking at the budget and just the update on the multitude of different things going on right now. And so I really don't have, honestly, any new information for the board at second interim right now, because not a lot has changed from first interim, though. And so all of our district budgets have been updated for second interim. And more specifically, that's our categorical programs, our ESSER monies, our COVID relief funding, some of our other categorical funding that still had ending fund balances that needed to be posted. So really, it's more the back end part of the accounting part of shoring up for our second interim report. And so I should probably use the clicker. All right, so some of our highlights for 22-23 really are what they've been. I haven't had to change a lot. Our highlights don't change. PERS and STRS contributions will continue to increase at an exponential rate. It is the biggest part of our increases year over year within our salary and benefits component, since these are outside of the control of the district or mandated by statute. We might see some relief in the out years. The proposed 23-24 budget does not include any relief for pension. It's our current governor, it's not really part of his push on his agenda to relieve pensions. His is more birth to 5 funding. And so if things change in that end, we might see some changes, but right now it doesn't look like in the horizons any relief from the state in pension reform. I try not to be political, but sometimes it's hard not to throw some stuff in there. All right, so our free and reduced applications have not been turned in at the same level as prior years. I want to just say they haven't, but man, did our schools did a great job in trying to get families to turn these applications in, because we had a bigger we had a larger application turn in than we did last year, and that was amazing. And I know our sites worked really hard with our families to not only communicate that this helps us with our funding levels and a multitude of different programs. There are a lot of benefits outside of that families would be available, that would have available to them to access if they have an application on file. The only thing I'll keep saying, I'll say this like a broken record, the state needs to find a new way to find a measurement for, measuring students of need and, our unduplicated count, because this is just not a measurement that's going to be sustainable. If you have a free meal and you're a parent and you don't want to fill out yet another form when, you're already getting a benefit of it, I cannot blame a person for not wanting to do that with as much incentive that we hope to give them, to do that. So, I'll hope that the state at some point reverses that and finds a new mechanism to gather that information. And child nutrition services, on the flip side of that, child nutrition services funding levels have exponentially gone up at the rate that they're serving meals, and our reimbursement rate now from the state on these meals is the reason why we have been able to hire so many new staff in our CNS program, why we have all these wonderful new offerings of fruits and vegetables and, meat alternative options, milk alternative options. These are all great things that our new CNS supervisor has been able to implement, and I applaud her for it. I know coming in and stepping in mid-year to a job is hard enough, but then coming in with your boss saying, can we change things and try to find some different ways of offering these meals, which, she just was like, yep, I'll look at that and see what we can do. And it's been a great offering for our students. I think she makes it fun. I know she goes, whenever she gets a new product in, she goes out on the line, like you're at the mall, if you want to sample, she does sample products. So the kids can sample them before they get them to see if it's something that they want to, give up their pizza for, or give up something else for. So I think that's really fun. And as we've talked about, one of the things that she's working on also is doing offerings for adults. And so now that we have additional staffs, being able to provide, starting at New Brighton first, providing meals to our, for purchase for our adult staff members who want to go, and a meal and a salad to go with it, and then offering that out to the rest of our staff at our elementaries when we are able to. So I think that's a lot of fun. All right, so our next one is our unrestricted unassigned reserves are up by 547,000 from our projected reserves from first interim. This is a direct correlation to the next bullet point of the COLA has increased to 8.13% as the projected COLA for 23-24. However, in the out years, 24-25 and 25-26, the COLA has been reduced based on what was presented at the adopted budget. So there's a slight shift. So the increase is not as great. And as we've talked about, the COLA can be offset by a negative augmentation, a negative COLA, or can just change. It's really hard to say right now. One of the big things that's driving our state, where our revenues are down statewide significantly, and the deferment of our income taxes from, where we are April 15th to May, and now from May to October, really puts the state in a position of not quite knowing their revenues and their revenue streams. So they're doing a lot of projections on delayed revenue streams. So I'm not sure exactly what we're going to hear from May Revise at that point, because even at May Revise, they're not going to know now with the deferment to October. So, and I know a lot of people will file their taxes sooner than October, but a lot of people won't. So it's going to continue to skew our state revenue.
Is that about half the state, or is it the whole state being deferred till October?
Well, it was about half the state. And then I just read that the governor approved, I think, 15 more counties and now they'll be part of that as well. Okay. So it's getting to be almost the whole
Yeah.
state at this point. Yeah. You know, housing sales are way down. It was an interesting comment I read on the news not too long ago. I think it was last week, that 75% of the people who sold their home and bought new homes in 2022 regret it. So I find that an interesting statistic, not sure where it came from, but it was really interesting. They were doing reports out on housing prices and the big drop in housing prices from the height to where we are today. So, you know, capital gains were at an all-time high for 2022. Capital gains will significantly go down as one of the big three. It's how our state makes a huge amount of their revenue. Capital gains go down, especially on the 1%ers. It swings our state really bad.
Right.
So that's something just to keep in mind for our long-term outlook. Our ADA enrollment is no longer held harmless. We have a 3-year rolling average, which is great, but really only really helps us in 22, 23. 23, 24, 24, 25, you just continue to bring in that lower year and it brings your average down significantly from the current year. So it was a slow roll, but it's still a cliff. So unless something further is done to fund us in either a different funding mechanism from ADA to enrollment, or continue to find a different way other than a rolling average or hold harmless, you know, will continue to decline. Our district is in a declining enrollment anyways, has been since COVID. This is not unique to us. This is every district in the county is finding that they're in declining enrollment. Almost every district in the state of California is in the state of declining enrollment. So it's just something just statewide that has to be looked at and very specifically to our Prop 98 guarantee. Okay, got a little ahead of myself on that third point. So let's see. Yes, so enrollment is down 265 from 1920. I mean, you know, 265 students times $9,000 to $10,000, depending on what year you're looking at, is a significant drop in funding for the district. I mean, obviously, when you have something like that, you do have through natural attrition, you don't, you know, hire as many staff members because you don't have as many students, but you know, your still overall cost is still as high or almost as high as what it was, but that's a significant drop for us.
Is that about 15%? I think.
We were at about, well, we're about 1900 and
Yeah.
ish, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so we do project our enrollment to continue to go down year over year. We might get a little boost in the next year or two with our TKers, with our COVID baby boomers, but you know, that's not something that the district can bank on, or many of the other districts. So that really is our only driving force right now, those TK and Kers and what that'll look like. Because, you know, once you get to the older age groups, you don't see a lot of increases. And as I said, through natural attrition and declining enrollment, we're looking at one certificated position in 23, 24 and 24, 25. That's both, like I said, due to the fact that we are naturally declining in enrollment. We are at the end of our COVID relief money, not the end of our categoricals, but the end of our COVID relief funds. This is the first time since COVID began, or the pandemic began, that there are no new monies in the proposed budget for any sort of COVID offset relief. So that is something, you know, it's interesting. We were talking about it today at the group that I attend for the CBOs in the county, big. We talked a little bit about that. You know, we've lived years now off of COVID relief funding to support programs and infuse monies into the district where we never had monies before to offer things that we've never been able to offer before, and not just our district, all districts, you know, and the end of that is coming soon in the next year or two when those monies expire. And there's no replacement plan. Like for our Chromebooks, the state does not have one. So those are things that we have to look at for our future, just to keep that in mind, that a lot of the wonderful things we've done have been based on one-time monies. Let's see, and no new one-time additional monies in the budget for the current year, and like beyond what we talked about. And so these are just, I always put these in here as a snippet of where we are. Sorry, I'm talking like you guys can see what I'm looking at. Sorry. This is our expenditures, and you need to keep in mind, I should say, that typically, or we are usually around 90%, 87 to 90% salary to for salary to our overall costs. This is significantly skewed because you can see in the supply account, we have almost $5 million, and that money almost specifically is centered around one-time COVID relief and or other funding, such as our learning recovery money, our educator effectiveness grant funding, our mental health funding, our TK grant monies. These are all really geared towards categorically funded programs. And that's where they lie until they find a home when we spend them. And so that's how we do our budgeting in education. And so if you look at our next slide, this is just a snippet of how we receive our revenue. As you can see, LCFF funding is the lion's share of the funding that we receive, and then federal, state, local are all very small other pots. You know, federal monies come in from our titles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Special education funding has some federal components to it. And our state funding is most of our ESTRA monies comes in through state, not federal. Other state funding is AB 602 for our special education funding. Some of the state grants, such as the educator effectiveness grant, those are all within the state funding levels, not federal funding levels. So, and then our look ahead. Just like we've been talking about, the impact of the state, federal, and world economy. The world economy still plays a huge impact on California. As you know, California is now the 4th largest economy in the world. And so, you know, we are a large player in our economy to what happens all over the world. And so that, I mean, there's nothing to say except that that's going to affect how much funding that we receive in education. And so in state and federal, you know, the federal government still can't find their footing in their funding levels in their budget either. So that really still sways our funding as well, because when they can't pass a budget, that just trickles down to us. Our continuing construction projects, you know, our 5-year plan, our fields, our monies we're receiving back, you know, our modernization monies. We've just been found out that we're going to get over $5 million in additional modernization money through our bond projects that we've completed. So we've been working on that now 3 years. And again, thanks to Pam, many signed forms later. We still don't have the cash, so I'm still not, you know, 100%, you know, on that money, but it's looking pretty good. I might have a report out for you guys really soon before the end of the year.
There's interest been building on that.
Oh,
right?
yes. The state of California is going to completely pay us interest. So yes.
That makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Enrollment negotiations. We talked about technology. It's not cheap to have a replacement plan in place for all of our current tech. And so, but, you know, keeping that, well, like I said, it's a lot better than trying to replace 2,000 devices at one time, doing it and chunking it out and continuously rolling that over. And as I talked about, the state matching money, our modernization funding, and then staffing levels, you know, is always what we look at when we, you know, do our budgets. And so my quote for the evening: nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. Right, Curry. So I liked that a lot. I also didn't know that she won 2 Nobel Prizes and in 2 different fields. And she was the first woman. And again, to a little nod to our Women's History Month for March. So any questions? At my lightning speed, sorry.
I'll start. So the ADA mitigation, I mean, last year we were trying to like figure out, trying to anticipate what's the state gonna say. So it sounds like did they decide on the 3-year rolling average?
Yes.
Which is actually not great for us, right? Because that 2019, 2020 was kind of our big bolster number. It kept us, so we're now down this next year, right? Down, is it 265 students?
No, because it's still rolling. You know, you're still getting the slow roll. So from where we were to where we are today, you know, it's not, like I said, it's not a cliff. So you have COLA, but you start to lose, you know, if you're averaging, you know, 100, 180, and now you're, you know, 80, you know, it's like you keep going down, your average continuously goes down. So this year we still held high. Next year is not as, you know, is not as great. And then the 3rd year is when you completely are losing any of your best years of your ADA and enrollment.
And what year is that?
25, 26.
Which is the next one on your spreadsheet that.
Which is not there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, because it is for me, it's just not for you guys.
Yeah, that's the only question I have. Can we see that? But that's okay. It's
scary. You guys don't want to look at a 5-year
I know,
forecast.
right,
Yeah,
right.
I know. So Yeah. You know, 3 years is hard enough. I mean, as you know, your projections are attached in the document, but you know, trying to forecast 3 years in advance is hard enough, you know,
Yeah.
and for us, you know, when we get together as, you know, the business people in our field, we always want to look at 5 years. But you know, no one, I mean, you can't even predict 3 years from now, let alone 5 years from now. So, you know, our inclination is to always go a little bit,
Right.
you know, on the conservative side.
But we can see what's going on here. So if you, on that page,
I think it's the
what's
last
202?
page. Yeah.
So you could see where revenue is going down and expenses are going up.
Yeah.
And I
We
mean,
are deficit spending year over
yeah,
year.
this year's deficit
Yeah.
is planned to be over $2 million.
I'm still loading, sorry.
And then another 1.1 or 2 in the next couple of years. So, you know, $3+ million in 3 years.
And, you know, and part of that too was a planned deficit
know,
spend,
I know.
you know, I mean, also because we stored our money so that we could give raises to find out when, you know, where we were at and what with that. And so the district had a large ending fund balance. So the deficit spending was planned. You know, that is part of what the COE looks at, you know, and they do write in
Right.
their deficit spending on, you know, and having a year over year deficit spending. But that is something we had already predicted based on the compensation packages we've already given.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, into the out years.
So Michelle, is kind of what you're talking about, the difference between the revenues and expenditures is, I mean, roughly, you know, almost it looks $3 million or 2.3 million, you know, where we have coming in less than what's going out, 29 versus 26.7. Is that what you're talking about, a part of these expenditures and a part of this plan? Because it looks like more money's coming out that's coming in.
Exactly. And it is. And what you want to look at on the board docket more specifically, because the last page is a combination of restricted and unrestricted funding. Really what we look at is the unrestricted funding, which is the LCFF funding in general terms. So yes, you're currently looking at the projected year of a $1 million deficit spend. If you're looking at if you're on the docket on page 200 of the docket, that is in the general fund, the deficit spending, which we had predicted when we did our compensation package. So that is something that we already planned and we knew. And so then that does carry forward. And so in the next year, we're spending we're deficit spending by 115,000, and then we're deficit spending again by almost $1 million in the third year out. And that is being made up by our ending fund balance, what we had predicted that it would be made up by. But, you know, there's two different ways of looking at that, right? Like you can't deficit spend for the remainder of your life because at some point your reserves are going to go away. So
unless you're the United States government.
Yeah. So we can't, or we would go like, you know, so it's part of what we do need to look at in our long-term, you know, forecast. If our revenues don't go up, if our ADA does not go up, if something doesn't change, then, you know, you can't deficit spend forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So
usually, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious, like, where is your, I don't know where's your threshold, Michelle? Like, how many years is this sustainable to deficit spend to this tune?
You know, I mean, that's a hard question to answer. If we were to never give another raise or all things staying equal and not change, right? It's a better way to predict that. But, you know, you're always going to have a changing expenditure budget. You're always going to have a changing revenue budget. So, you know, I mean, I would like to see the district not deficit spend. I mean, every person in my position would tell you that, you know, deficit spending is not how you should be spending. You never buy things to eat, which is, you know, so that's our famous saying. So, yeah, I it's hard for me to say that succinctly for you, Robert, because I just, you know, don't know until I know. You know, if our enrollment continues to decline, our expenses will decline, our revenue will decline. You know, it's hard to say.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wish I could give you a more firm answer on that.
No, and where does the money come from to cover that gap? Are we then taking out a loan to cover that money?
No, I mean, when we look at when we do a multi-year projection, when I present to the board, you know, you're the current year and 2 fiscal years out. And in order to file positive, which we are because we have a positive ending fund balance, in your third year out, you have to make your, your financial obligations. And if you don't, you either are negative or qualified, meaning are you 2 years, not able to make your obligations, or only 1 year not able to make your obligations. So obviously, if we were at that point, that would be a larger conversation for the district to have as to how we would mitigate that deficit spending. And or if we predicted that we were going to get increased revenue by something that either the state or our own revenue stream would change through the form of, say, a parcel tax.
Right. Have you been through this situation before, and have you seen it turn around, whether it's state funds, not including COVID? I mean, I don't think we can bank on another pandemic. Where they do come in or they do help out us, or what's the resolution if we continue the deficit spend?
If we continue to deficit spend and we don't receive additional revenue, then we have to make cuts like that. There has to be, you can't have one without the other. So the district would have to look at what are we going to not spend in order to maintain our fiscal solvency in the future. And that's why we do a 2-year lookout, and I do a 5-year lookout, to have that extra layer. So when we look at that, everything changes every time a compensation package is given, every time, changes. The new year can change that as well. We've gone through the last few years of a lot of change in staffing, and not just for staffing, overturn of staffing, but staffing that comes in at different levels, or those of retirement age. Because obviously their salaries, anybody who's at the retirement age is going to have a higher salary threshold than necessarily someone coming in that's newer. So that can swing how much of your budget you're deficit spending. And a lot of times we don't know that until the next year, once all of our hiring has been done. And that can change the factors of what your expenses are for year over year.
So in your professional opinion, I mean, are we on track? Are we good for 3 years? Do you see this working itself out by the end of your 3-year plan?
As we stand currently today, yes. I mean, I'm presenting a positive budget for the board for approval, and all things being said right now, we have a positive outlook on our 3rd year out, even with our deficit spending.
And what do you expect in the next 2 years to cover that deficit spending? Like, what's the basis of that?
Our deficit spending currently is covered by our ending fund balance. So as you can see, we go from 2.5 million to 2.3 million to 1.4 million as you go into the out years. So our ending fund balance is covering our deficit spending. And really, you see the huge swing because, predicted right now is 18.3 million for the current year for LCFF funding, and then 18.5 million for 23-24 and 17.9 million for 24-25. That's where you see in 24-25, you see that 3-year rolling average really kick in. And the not only am I predicting us to still be in declining enrollment, but the 3-year rolling average protection loses its steam in 24-25.
Right.
And so, I mean, I can't say, but the state, every district is running into this problem right now. And it's something that the state's going to have to do something about it. It isn't like every district in the state of California, obviously, suddenly becomes flush with money. Really, that only happens if you have a boost in enrollment, and no one right now is looking at a boost in enrollment, not in our state. And so that's through Prop 98 and through other funding mechanisms. That's something the state's going to have to look at.
Well, it really emphasizes utilizing a different method than ADA. And I know you brought that up and we've all talked about that.
Yes. I mean, when you're looking at ADA factors, you're talking, in our case, because right now we're still coming down from 96% on an average for our attendance factor to 91% right now. You're talking that could be $1.5 million in lost revenue just in ADA alone because of that factor. And I really want to be clear, not through any fault of anyone. I mean, kids are getting sick. We have protocols why students have to stay home. We try with independent study. We just are not there yet. We're not back to the levels we were pre-pandemic, where we were at 95-96%. So I guess I left that out. I should have mentioned that. I apologize. As our factor of ADA goes up, basically hopefully through, coming back up from this pandemic and having all of these, the absences that are bringing us down. If we get back up to 95, 96% factor in our ADA, even with declining enrollment, that will bring our revenue up. And so that small change, even 1%, makes a huge change in our revenue factor.
Good point. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you. Appreciate all the information. That's very, very helpful.
So at this point, right now, the term average daily attendance is a misnomer because it's an average 3-year attendance.
Well, it's your average daily attendance for the year, then averaged over 3 years. So,
Yeah,
if
so
you
it's
want to
not-
look at funding, if you're looking at what your percentage of average daily attendance is in the current year, if you want a percentage of your students that are attending school, then you're looking at your 1 year. If you're looking at your funding mechanism,
Yeah,
you use that over a 3-year period.
and we're only looking at the funding here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Jessica might look at something else.
yeah.
You might. I know. It's really a difficult position, when 95, 96% ADA ratio was, an average, it was a lot easier to make the determination
Right.
on your out years.
Yeah, and that's another goofy number. So what is ADA going to be? Somewhere between 90 and 96?
Yeah.
And each percent is worth a lot.
A lot, yeah.
So besides cuts, that's what school districts usually do, and they cut furthest away from the classroom. So there's revenue, getting more revenue, and we talked about that, about the facility usage and stuff like that.
Yes.
And so I would suggest that that's something, I don't want to put that all on you, but that we think about, the board thinks about, because school districts aren't known to go out and sell themselves. They're not a big thing for school districts do, but we do. So we should think about that. And programs. So it's been my experience that students will move from district to district if there's a specific program that would benefit them. And so if we can find unique educational programs, then that could probably be a magnet.
I would say, yes, I agree that kids come into school districts for magnet-like programs. I think they also can be good first time instruction. And we do get lots of kids that way. But I do think that our schools are doing some really interesting things in terms of specializing in stages of, one of them. There are many. I know Main Street is working on a designation of sorts. Yeah, so I'm not gonna tip my hat on that one. I'll let somebody do a presentation in the future on that one, but I would just say we do care about the community and giving children and families choices. Really good choices.
Right.
So I would agree with you. I would also say that this has been an opportunity to get kids from other districts by offering something different. But I also believe strongly that, schools don't necessarily put themselves out like a product. Like we just do what we do. And so there may be a way we can get that message out better.
So when you have a program like you were just describing, press release. That's how the public knows.
All good things.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I just hope that we don't just keep thinking about cutting.
No. I would agree with you. Yes.
And creative about revenue.
Yes. Yes, that is excellent alternative.
All right, team, any other questions from the board? Thank you. You've presented things clearly and answered good questions. Do you have any questions for us in the audience? No, we're good. Okay. No, okay. Any email questions on our second interim?
It's heartbroken, but no.
No. Well, they've been following along and they heard all of our.
They're
questions.
lost.
Yeah.
All right, well then, with that, do I have a motion to approve our second interim budget report?
I move, and thank you for putting budget in the agenda title.
You're welcome.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Let him.
okay, that was an aye? Or that was a second?
That was both.
Awesome. Okay, Robert
There we
second.
go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, sorry about that little delay there. Any correspondence anyone needs to report? I don't think we have any from the DO. I don't have any. We don't have any future agenda items listed. We covered quite a few
Yeah.
at our special meeting last week. Anyone need to request one at this point? No, you're always welcome to reach out as we do. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
All right, second.
I love that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. 9:04 p.m.
Second, we have to stay.
Thank
Yeah,
you
I know.
very much
Thank you,
for
everybody.
hanging out with us. Good night, Robert.
Good night. Thank you guys very much.
Birthday.